So this is the Math Assistance Call Center webinar. Our presenters this morning will be Lori Slayton and Chandra Joshi. And assisting me this morning as support for the webinar are Krista Mosier, Paula Bauer, and Anne-Marie Molinari Sanders. So thank you to the TCAL team. And I just want to welcome our presenters, Lori Slayton with the Texas Workforce Commission, who's the lead on this project, and Chandra Joshi with Student Nest. All right, Lori, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, would you like to go ahead and get us kicked off?
I would, actually. Good morning, everyone. I am thrilled to be here. I got to tell you, I liked when we had everybody's face on there for just a minute because I have really missed seeing you guys. No site visits, no conferences. So it's so nice that y'all are here. I appreciate your being here today. I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Chandra Joshi here for just a second, and then we'll hear from him and he'll answer questions a little bit later. But Chandra is the president of Student Nest Foundation, and he is here with us this morning to help us understand how the call center works. So Chandra's here, and we'll hear from him in just a little bit. I want to take you through a couple of things first before we get started. So the history of this is, it was formerly called the Distance Learning Call Center. It was inactive through 2016 through 2019. It was also, this contract was with Student Nest at that time as well. So you probably are familiar with the name Student Nest. Services will be limited to, and participants must have their team's participant ID number in order to receive services. At the end of the contract, in its last term, I think Student Nest was able to accept them whether they had their team's ID or not, and whether they were active AEL students or not. But in this go round, at least for while we're getting things started and kind of see how it goes, they will need to have that participant ID number. We have a form for you to put that on, and we'll look at that in just a minute, or you can give it to them in any way you see fit. Services are available via computer, smartphone, a landline, good old-fashioned landline. If you have to do math by the phone, these people can help you. They've been doing this for many, many years, and they're very good at what they do. So this is traditionally one-on-one math tutoring. It is available in multiple languages. Spanish and English will always be available. Other languages, we will accommodate the need. And services will be open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, and yes, on the weekends too, which is, of course, probably the most likely time our students are going to want help with their math, right? So I think we can help them. We've got the times covered, we've got the languages covered, we've got availability covered. So I think this is going to be very, very helpful service for our students. So this is reinvigorated flyer. You might recognize it. No, this is the one in Spanish. That's fine. This one is in Spanish, and this is in the chat pod, so you can download this if you want. I'll also make this available. All of these forms will be available on the TCAL website, which is probably a surprise to TCAL since I haven't talked to them about that yet, but we'll get that done presently. So this is the flyer in English that was used previously, has a little bit of a change on it, but primarily what they're looking for is for the program name, program location, and the participant ID from Teams. This has all the information you need on it. This is the referral form for Student Nest. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. And so this is a sample referral form. This isn't something that you have to use. It's just beneficial, and it has all the information on it. As you can see, the participant ID is right smack in the middle. If you don't get anything else on here, the name and participant ID are the most, and the program name are the most important things to have on here. But the other information is helpful. Okay, so this is a little bit difficult to read, so I'm going to go through this. As tedious as that is, it's very important information. And let me just say that this MOU has to be enacted between Student Nest and one of our core grantees. So Houston Galveston Consortium, they only have to have one MOU with HGAC. All the subs are covered under this MOU. So there only has to be one between the actual grantee, the AEL grantee, and the Student Nest Foundation is what this MOU is for. It's a data sharing agreement, and it kind of outlines what our expectation is from you and from Student Nest to participate in the program. So this is, some of it is the same as it was last time, although Mahalia and I went through this and we set it up a little bit differently for the teams aspect. We tried to simplify this for you. And so we'll just go through that and I'll answer questions as they come up, Beth, if you'll just holler at me. The Student Nest Foundation, which is what SNF stands for, Student Nest Foundation agrees to provide the name of the Math Assistance Call Center instructor, the MAC instructor, to the AEL program. They will provide MAC participant usage data in an encrypted format for each subcontractor or CBO on a biweekly basis. So even though the MOU is only between the grantee, the main grantee, we'll stick with HGAC and Student Nest, since all the subcontractors are covered in this, you would get your data directly from Student Nest to the subcontractor, to the sub-grantee. And that is on a biweekly basis, just like you're required to do with your data now for entry. Student Nest will provide usage reports in an Excel spreadsheet format to include the participant name, their team's ID, the program name, the hours on provide support, which is Student Nest Foundation's website customer service. So on the report, it will include the time that they spend with support outside of the math tutoring. The hours tutored, the total hours, the number of sessions attended, the subject they were tutored in, the topic and AEL standard covered during the session. It'll include caller status, whether they're repeat or full or first time, and the date of attendance. So a lot of information on that report, a lot of really good information on that report, and everything you really need to get the contact hours entered into Teams. And then there's a naming convention for how that report will be named when you receive it. That's what it'll look like in that format. Okay, and so the other half of the MOU is what the grantee agrees to do. What TWC is going to do first is when there is a request for services in a place where there has not previously been services, TWC is going to assign the MAC as a site in Teams for that program. So we will also have a naming convention, and all of the programs will be, it'll be like MACC_HGAC, MACC _Amarillo, etc. So that when we pull the data out of Teams, it will be very easy for us to identify those sites, and we can pull all the information we need from there. One of the issues with the last time that we did this project through the Distance Learning Call Center was that we really didn't capture enough data that was extractable for us. And so we really are trying to capture that this go round. And then the provider will create a class under the TWC assigned site for each sub-provider or contractor or community-based organization in Teams, and assign an instructor of record for each of those classes. So they're going to create a class under the site that TWC has created for them, and they'll assign an instructor of record for that class. Then they'll assign AEL participants to the class or classes. In your data management plan, you're going to include a MAC section that includes, at a minimum, these things: the name of the site and class dedicated for MAC contact hour reporting, the instructor of record name being used by each grantee and or each provider, the process outlined in this MOU on how student participation and contact hours will be supplied to and recorded by the grantee or providers in teams. It will include how student records are received from Student Nest and will be retained by the grantee. They will provide the AEL program, grantee or subcontractor or CBO a point of contact to the MAC in order to ensure that students are appropriately identified for services and create that partnership, right? So we're going to have a point of contact for each of those providers, and everything will flow through them. They're going to enter MAC usage data shared by the Student Nest Foundation into teams for each subcontractor or CBO, again on a biweekly basis, as direct hours. These are not proxy hours because it's not time spent in distance learning that is asynchronous, right? So they're going to be direct hours because it's direct interaction, it's happening in real time. And then they're going to maintain the records of student attendance for monitoring purposes, of course. The period of service, just in case you're wondering why I put those dates, is because we're going to be open for business on October 15th, which is coming up very, very quickly. It's very excited about this. And the grant initial period is 18 months. So it's going to run through June 30th of 2022. So while we have a good while to utilize these services, I would like very much to see this take off like a rocket. Yeah, I see such value in this grant, I really do, that I think can, you know, from somebody who had struggled with math mightily, this would have been a fantastic service for me. So I can see that this has a lot of value. And then there's contact information for the Student Nest Foundation and for the AEL grantee down at the bottom. Yeah, Chander's going to present. He's going to show us a little bit about what the services look like for the students. So if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and so let's welcome Mr. Chander Joshi of the Student Nest Foundation. He's going to walk us through a little bit of stuff that I think you'll find very interesting and very helpful for this program. Chander?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Yeah, again, good morning, everybody. My name is Chander Joshi. I'm president of Student Nest Foundation. I'm going to introduce our team members that are also on the call. And then as one of the questions that was brought forward to Lori, I am going to do a couple of minute demo on what our platform looks like and what the individuals, participants will see and feel when they're doing the presentation. At this time, I'll introduce Monica Joshi, who's the Vice President of Student Nest Foundation.
Hi, everyone.
Even though I am going to be the main contact, but in case I'm not available, I do a lot of traveling. Monica will be available for any questions or concerns that you might have. I'm also introducing Daisy Hernandez and Sunny, who are part of our customer service team. Lori mentioned people will be able to call in. Our toll-free number, 888-295-3916, which is on the flyers that Lori went through. Those will be addressed by Daisy and her team. And when individuals come to our website at studentnest.com, Sunny and his team will be communicating with them using the provide support, as well as if anybody's sending emails. Our main email address, again, it is on the flyer, is tutoring@studentnest.com. Another product, we're not going to go into detail today, but Sunny will be your contact for, is our mobile app called Lotus, Learning Online Through Universal System. Lotus is an adaptive learning AI-based mobile app for individuals in English and Spanish. We will only be utilizing it for math purposes under the MAC program. This is an added benefit that any participant that comes through our program will get depending on, you know, the requirements from your program as well as the needs of the students. We probably will not start that for another month or two to make sure that the initial setup of MAC works out and all the little kinks that might happen at the beginning are all taken care of. So a little quick history. As I said, some of you I know I've talked to in the past. Initially, as Lori said, the program was called Distance Learning Call Center. It ran from about July of 2016 through June of 2019, almost 3 years. Even though the contract was for 3 years, I believe the services started in September of 2016. Initial program was designed as individuals calling into the program, but with the new technologies that were available, TWC was great in adapting the program somewhat to meet the needs, not only of the technology, but more importantly, the participants, where they could use the newer technologies that were available. The program did start off a little bit slow, but towards the latter part of the year, I think initially we were getting 40 to 50 participants a month. And towards the end, I think we did 12 to 1,300 sessions. Some of those sessions were, which is a great achievement for the program. And thus, Lori's comments about she believes that this is going to be a very beneficial program for the participants. Some of the aspects of the program, and I'm going to go through it in detail right now, is going to be, it's similar to Zoom, Google Meet, or Microsoft Teams. So if any of you are familiar with those programs, then you'll be familiar with our platform as well. Lori, before I start doing the demo, one of the things Lori mentioned was the reports. So we will be providing reports with all the details that she mentioned bi-monthly, but we can also provide them at a another interval if you wish to have a weekly report or even a daily report, or maybe on particular individuals. One of the things I found very intriguing was toward the latter part of 2018 and beginning of 2019, a lot of participants were coming for multiple hours a month. So in those particular cases, and we've talked about this, we would actually do a pre-test on an individual if we know they're going to be coming on a regular basis. So we can actually utilize your assessments on an individual, provide the services, and do either interim quizzes and actually do a post-test so you can see a gradual increase, hopefully, in the participants. And these are some of the things that we'll be doing as time progresses and as individuals start coming in. Okay. So with that, there will be two types of services, as Lori mentioned, the direct services, which will be tracked separately from the indirect services. Direct services mean when somebody's actually coming in for a tutoring session and they're logging in, and when the service is done, they're logging out. That time will be calculated. We're also going to be tracking the indirect services, meaning if somebody calls in and Daisy and her team accept a phone call, it'll be logged in whatever time and day they called in and whenever they left. So that, and that doesn't mean just for tutoring purposes. If they're calling in to set up a session or they have questions or concerns, all of that will be tracked. And then Sunny will be doing the same thing as it relates to people coming in to the live support. Most of those sessions, whether it's a phone call or live support, is generally 3 to 5 minutes.
Hey, Chander,
Yes.
can I interrupt you for a question?
Sure.
Are tutors and your service familiar with the outcomes necessary for students to complete the HiSET or GED math test?
So our administrative team is, our tutors generally are not involved with that aspect. They're familiar with the needs of the program. So if an individual comes in, the tutor's role is generally to address the needs of the individual coming in. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm getting ready for a HiSET and I need to get, I have some questions or concerns about an algebra problem, they will address those needs. And if there's any question or concern from the participant beyond that, then they will contact us at the toll-free number or they can email us and we will help them address those particular needs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, with that, I am going to start doing a quick demo I'm going to do a quick demo on our platform. Okay, so this is what our platform is going to look like when somebody is logging in. I'm not going to do too much on here. I know I think there was over 70 some odd participants, which is great, with all our co-presenters on there. So that was great to see. I'm glad the participation is so high. As Lori said, that shows a lot of need that people are looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show our math toolbar here, the whiteboard itself. There's a chat window in here. All the sessions have a recording button on there and also a time. So when a student and a tutor are communicating, the tutor can, even though we're not going to be able, so I'm not going to put our camera inside of a camera, but just really quick, you have the ability to have a video, you have speaking ability, the writing tool, the microphone. This shows you the strength of all the particular tools that are being utilized. So Sunny, maybe you can write hello in the chat window there. So Sunny wrote the hello right here. You can see that we're able to communicate with each other. Anybody who's a participant, their information will be shown here. As I said, if you're familiar with Zoom or Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, then a lot of this is very familiar. It just looks a little different based on the layout. So you have the ability to draw on the whiteboard. In particular case, as you saw, I'm not going to go through this, but Sunny, you are able to actually type on the screen. These are very important for math purposes where you can actually draw using the draw tools there. And you can add additional clean whiteboards if you're going to be using them. So this is one of the best tools that were back in 2004. As Lori said, we've been doing this for a long time. So we started in 2004, and a lot of these tools were not around at that time. It was just a whiteboard with being able to write on there. But utilizing these kind of particular tools, it made life really easy as we started teaching math to individuals. Probably one of the best ones was the graph, as people started getting involved with higher level classes. You can change the size of the lines that are being utilized if necessary. You can change the colors as you need. So these are very important tools. Just as a point of note, people believe that when you go ahead and do something or say something, you can actually erase it. Well, if I told you at the beginning, these sessions are being recorded. So if somebody actually writes something inappropriate or says something inappropriate, all of that does get recorded. So true, you can write something and go ahead and start deleting it, but just remember the writing part is also there, and whatever somebody's deleting is also there. So that's a great tool we utilize to keep track not only of the participants and making sure everybody behaves properly, but it also applies to our tutors to make sure that everybody acts in a professional manner. Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Beth, we do have a couple of questions. Do you want to address them now while you're in the platform?
Well, I only have like one more thing I wanted to show, and then I'll definitely take questions.
Okay, thank you.
So as I stated, the four main parts of this platform are audio, video, chat, and whiteboard. We generally do not utilize the video unless there's an absolute need. One, for privacy purposes, there's no need for us to be, looking at people, if you will. It is a distraction. So having the participant paying attention to either the chat window if they're communicating or to the whiteboard is very important. And we work a lot with the remote regions, and I'm sure, Texas, you have the same issue. So a lot of people have internet issues. So what we can do is actually even the audio for the participants can be turned off if they're having internet issues, and they can communicate through the chat window. So what I was going to do is just quickly do an upload of a file in the midst of, so if you're doing a session, you can upload a file in the middle. And again, if you remember, Lori just went through the particular MOU here. So it could be any file. You can have a JPEG file, PDF, Word file. And again, this is just an image here. So you can actually write on the particular document. We use this a lot, especially in a PDF form. If somebody is getting ready for a math class or a test and they have some concern on a particular problem, they can actually share that document with the tutor. So the tutor isn't using examples, they're actually helping them with what's going on. I do want to re-emphasize one thing, which is we will not do somebody's homework and we will not take their test. So we have had requests, not just from TWC participants, but we work with a lot of different school districts and departments, and we make sure that we're not doing somebody else's work for them. Our role is to help and not actually do the work for them.
Okay, so the first question's from Glenda. What platform is this called, and will they need to download this into their device? Some of our students only have cell phones.
So this platform is called WizIQ. You'll see, hopefully, let me pick up my pointer here. And the answer is yes. The only download, at least between now and December 31st, is using Flash. So this technology is based on Flash, which is a free program. So there's no software to download. If your phone or computer or tablet already has Flash, then the links, so let me step back a little bit. So what will happen is a participant will contact our customer service, and they will be provided a link which would take them to, and here's a link right here, live.wiziq.com, and then the actual session ID. So that link is shared with the tutor as the participant link, and the tutor for the presenter link, and with the participant as the student link. So they will not have access to any of these particular controls. All of that is controlled by the tutor. So when the tutor is ready to let them, kind of like what we're doing here in the Zoom call, the audio and all the different tools are on hold until the person in charge of the session releases them. This works the same way. So the only thing they really need to download would be the Wiz. If they're using a phone, they will have to download the app, obviously, but that's true with anything. But as far as software is concerned, you just need to have Flash. And the reason I said through 12/31 of 20, after that, Flash will not be available. I think it might still be available, but will not be receiving any services. So the software in the background is changing where it won't be on Flash, but be just a cloud-based program that's available to everybody. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think so. So the next question is from Eleanor. Does the student draw, or are you discussing what the tutor uses?
So the answer is both. As I said, we're not going to do anybody's homework, but we are going to be using examples. So, if we go to a clear here, if, I probably should do this one here. If I'm actually participating with a student and we're actually going to be solving problems or hopefully not playing tic-tac-toe, then you can see here, Sunny, I've turned his camera off, his microphone is off, and I've turned the tools off because I don't want any distractions. And if I was to turn him on, give him those services now, because this is a platform within the Zoom call, everybody would start hearing the echo, so we're not really going to do that. But initially, if a presentation is being done by the tutor, none of the tools will be available to the participant. The tutor will go through and say, okay, here's your material. Let me explain to you what date of referral means. Let me explain to you all the things that Student Nest Foundation has to do and so forth. And then if the student has a question, they can raise their hand or they can come into the chat window and put in a request and say, can I please have, I have some questions. The microphone can be turned on at that time. The tools will be given, they will get access to the tools, and then they will be able to come on here and to write whatever they wish to write at that time. So this helps in multiple ways. One, as I said, working in remote areas, the bandwidth becomes an issue. So the less activity on that tool through the internet, the stronger the signal remains. The second thing is, again, you don't want the student or participant to start writing in the middle of a presentation because there's no benefit to that. You want to have an organized session. It's no different than actually being in a face-to-face class. A student cannot really just start talking without the teacher or the student raising their hand and then the teacher giving them permission to speak at that particular time. Again, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I believe it did. And that I think it also answered Lisa's question, which was about the student and the tutor being able to interact together on the board. Another question, can you show us what it looks like with the video on?
Yeah, I can try the video. Like I said, you should just see me sitting in front of the same screen if I had the reason I didn't turn the video on is because, I think I have my Zoom call video off, but you would have had a camera inside of a camera there. But it's just the camera that comes on.
This is a follow-up question to that is, you mentioned that the sessions are recorded. Are you able to email these recordings to the instructor if requested? And if so, how would they request a copy?
Yeah, so good question. The answer is yes. I believe the sessions are generally available 4 to 6 hours after a session has been completed. So you can, we started this, I think, around 9 a.m. CST. I think we have it going until about 11 o'clock CST. So like if this session was being shared, it would probably be available by about 4 or 5 o'clock Texas time. All you would have to, if somebody is interested in a session, you can go to tutoring@studentnest.com and my email information will be shared as well. All you have to do is send us a request. If somebody's interested in regular sharing of the links, we can just start providing them to you on a regular basis. And all you're doing is, I believe they get recorded as a MP4 file. So you'll be able to see the video from the beginning to the end.
Okay, so we have a message from Susan that said she has a Samsung phone and could not download Adobe Flash, but she was able to download the WizIQ. Oscar is asking, can we see a short recorded video demonstration example?
I don't understand the question. Video as in this session being
I think
recorded?
he's just asking if you have a session recorded that we could watch.
Oh, that isn't something that we were planning on doing today, but I'd be more than happy to have pull up a session that maybe even from one of the TWC sessions from a year ago, and I'd be more than happy to send that as a video. I don't have them on my particular computer for me to be able to share that for today's purposes.
Okay, thank you, Oscar,
But-
though. That's a nice idea, and we'll see if we can do something about that.
Yeah, and I can,
Okay.
I'll work with Sunny on that. And like I said, if you want, we can send them to everybody that was on the session today, or if Oscar and maybe only a handful of them want to look at it, or I can just give it to you guys and you can share it as you need.
Okay. And let's see. So Lisa is asking, when you say a session, multiple students are usually in at once with one tutor, or are students assigned to individual tutors, like was mentioned at the beginning of the session?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, in the 3 years with the TWC program, we never did more than a one-on-one session, because there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no structure in that, right? Each individual, I think there's 113,000 people through the TWC program that are participants, and everybody's at their own level. So, like I said, to the best of my knowledge, we've never done more than a one-on-one. We can do 100 on one. That's not the issue. The issue is if somebody comes in and says, I have a particular problem I need answers for, then a tutor is assigned to them just to help them for that particular problem. If one of the programs wanted to say, hey, I have about 20 different people, I think we can actually do a class. Are you willing to set up a class where you go through teaching them how to add and how to subtract, how to divide, how to use algebra problems, linear equations, and so forth? It wasn't discussed, but that's something Lori and I can talk about. I'm assuming it shouldn't be an issue. In that particular case, you would definitely have more than one-on-one. So if they assign 20 participants to say every Friday at 5 p.m., we want to have a class on particular subjects, we would definitely be able to do something like that. Along with that, as we're saying, one of the benefits of not turning the video on is these sessions are recorded, as we just said. So and one of the things you guys are asking for is what was covered in those subjects. So if a person doesn't have the ability to come and do a live session and so forth, and you wanted to be able to share a recording with somebody, as long as we're not sharing anybody's information, that recording could be used if it's a generic enough recording for somebody else to be able to use it. Which again, you're still having a one-on-one session, but you're not really sharing anybody's information. Confidentiality is very high, as I think even in our MOU and all the agreements, confidentiality of everybody and their team's information is a high priority.
Okay, we have a couple other people that are interested in a video demo. Mary asked, how long do the sessions typically last?
Yeah, anywhere from 5 minutes to, I want to say there was a couple of regulars that we had towards the beginning of 2019, and they were coming in for 2 hours a day, about 3 days a week. So I know there was one individual, she came in on a regular basis. I think she was coming in for 20 to 25 hours a month for about 4 months straight. So the session is really dependent upon the individual and what they're looking for. But we can set up one session for up to 5 hours. So the link I was sharing with you, as I said, we set it up from 9 to 11, but we can set it up as one running class for up to 5 hours. And then if somebody says, I need a class for 8 hours, which to the best of my knowledge has never happened, we would set it up for 5 hours and then take a break and do another 3-hour class.
So Glenda has a question that kind of goes to the question about scheduling. So can the student request the same person or request specific schedule, or is it just first come, first serve?
Actually, I was literally about to start discussing that. Good question. Who was that?
That was from Glenda.
Glenda, you read my mind. Thank you. So our hope and goal is always to try to assign the same tutor with the same participant. So if Glinda, I'm sorry, I'm going to use your name as an example. If Glinda comes in and says, I have a question, can you teach me how to add, 3-digit numbers? So, and that's a particular question she had. And let's say it's today, October 9th. So we're just going to help her with that problem. And she says, thank you. And then she moves on. Now, she may come back a week from now and say, I have another question. So that's on a, basically on a first come, first served basis. If she says, hey, every Friday from 1 to 2 o'clock, can I please have a session? And if you remember, I talked about the pre-test and post-test. In those particular instances, it would be wise to go through an assessment with these individuals, whether it's Glinda or anybody else, because then we can focus on the needs of that particular individual. And we're not helping them in areas where they already know how to do something, but we focus in on the weak areas. And as they get benefit there, then across the board, their knowledge base increases. So a real quick answer to that is yes. In an ideal world, that's the best way to do it. And that's why I said participants can come onto the live support and say, this is Glinda. I'm from region 13. I'm looking for math help. I'm available from 7 to 8 o'clock tonight. Can I please get a session? And once they share if they're new, then they'll be entered into the system. If they let us know that they, already have been tutored. Now, with a particular tutor, they can obviously say, can I tutor with Monica, let's say. But the thing is, if somebody is normally coming in between 1 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Monica is the tutor, and then they come in and want a session at 7 to 8 p.m. on a Saturday when Monica is not working, obviously it's very difficult to match the tutor and the participant at that time. Or even if it's 1 to 2 on Wednesday and then they want a session on Saturday, again, if that's the day off for that particular tutor, or if it's a new request and the tutor already had an assigned student, then it would be very difficult to match them. So our number one goal is always to try to match the tutor with the particular participant.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. And Lori, this might be one that you want to address. This one's from
Yeah,
Tammy.
it is.
About shouldn't the classes be at least 7 minutes?
So yeah, Chandra, what this is referring to is in our data collection system Teams, it only records time in 15-minute increments. So any direct contact over 7.5 minutes will automatically defer to 15. And so she's asking, shouldn't class, in order to be recorded, shouldn't classes be at least, it should say 7.5 minutes. And yeah, the sessions would only count if they're at least that long for direct hours.
And from our standpoint, that is fine. In reality, if a student comes in and says, can I have a session from 10 o'clock to 10:30 or 11? Nobody comes in and says, can I have a 5-minute session, right? So if they come in and say, I have a couple of questions, can you address those? And let's say we start and they say, oh, you know what, I have to leave now. Then we would have to shut it off. We'll share that data. And if you want to say that doesn't count towards any particular session, that's fine. But that's an administrative part. We really can't hold a participant to stay in a session beyond what they want to. I hope that makes sense. That's something that's really out of our control. Again, out of 1,000 sessions, it only happens maybe 1 or 2 times where the session may not go more than 7.5 minutes, where it can be rounded up to a 50 or a quarter hour or 15-minute session.
Okay, we have a couple of questions that have to do with the assessment that you've mentioned. So we have 2. Let me give you the first one, and then we may or may not address the second one. Could we share our baseline assessment so that students were not tested again?
The answer is yes, actually. About a week or 2 weeks ago, Lori and I had a meeting, I think, with Mahalia, who's in charge of the program. and I believe the decision was made, and Lori, you can correct me, that TWC actually prefers that we utilize your information with
Yes.
so the assessment starting point can actually be whatever information you guys share with us. And it's a better marker anyways to use, because doing a demo with StudentNest, or sorry, not a demo, sorry, a pre-test with StudentNest, the participant is not familiar with us. They may not be familiar with this kind of technology. So there's so many other external factors that can have an impact, may show us lower score than their actual knowledge. So if they've already provided an assessment information, that is the ideal information to get.
Okay, so I think that addresses Sharon's question, which was kind of the flip was, can you share your assessment with us? So at our local programs, we're sharing that data with you, then I think that one's moot. But Sharon, if it's not, just put something else in the chat. And then Mary asked, how will we share the assessment results with you?
I will leave that response to Lori. I mean, I know there's certain protocols that need to be followed as far as the information that can and cannot be shared. Before, Lori, you go to answer this, one of the things on the assessments, over time, once everything starts going, we can actually build an assessment if necessary based on TWC protocols that might make it a little bit easier as time goes to have an assessment that's built into the program itself. So just wanted to throw that out there. But I know, Lori, we had a discussion about what and how information can be shared with StudentNest.
Yeah, that we'd want to do that on an individual basis, and we might be able to utilize something like the referral form that we have. But I would prefer to get with Mahalia and see if she has had any thought on that already. That's not something that we have had a decision point on, is going to be about sharing that information. You will be able to share it. The methodology just hasn't been determined yet.
Yeah, and I do want to add one thing here. So the assessment, and hopefully I did address this at the beginning, the assessment only has value from a practical standpoint if an individual is coming on a reoccurring basis. Because knowing, if a person comes in, again, just using an example, somebody wants help with an addition or linear equations, and we can address that need, and that was all they wanted, us having information, their assessment information has no value. If on the other hand, somebody wants to have a regular session and is looking for an increase in knowledge and having an impact on their needs where they think they're weak, then the assessment has a tremendous amount of value, because we can literally figure out, based on the assessment data you share with us, what areas we should be focusing on. So instead of us doing a pre-test on them and trying to create a learning plan, we can actually utilize the assessment that you give us and create a learning plan. And we can share that learning plan with the program as well, identifying, hey, this is the schedule we've kind of calculated for the student. These are the areas of need based on the assessment you have shared that we believe. And as a matter of fact, if you guys have a long-term relationship with the participant and you want to share not only the assessment, but say, hey, StudentNest, we believe you should be working on these particular elements with this participant, we can create our plan accordingly.
So we don't have another question at this time. We do have a comment from Lisa. I see this as a great companion service to students who have already attended our remote or face-to-face high school equivalency classes, especially if they have particular questions right before they're about to take the official exam. Eleanor asked, is there a way for the tutor and the class instructor to communicate about the students?
So the class instructor would be the program
Correct.
individual. Yeah, our tutors, so let me just rephrase that. Probably not with the tutor unless it's absolutely necessary. but definitely with Student Nest Foundation. So whether it be myself or Daisy or Monica or Sunny or somebody else that's going to be involved with the program. And the reason I say that is the tutors are generally there to, tutor the students. But if a class instructor wants to have a direct communication with the tutor, whether it be to let them know something about a participant or the other way around, they want to find out something about the participant, we can definitely set up a direct communication with the tutor. It may be because, as we say, if a tutor's working from 7 a.m. CST until noon CST, and they're tutoring individuals back to back, it would be very difficult to pull them out to have a discussion with somebody. But if we can have email communication, we can definitely set up a call to where you're able to communicate directly with the tutor. Shouldn't be a problem. But if it's just you want to share some information, instead of delaying it, it might be wise to just just a generic request from Student Nest, and we would make sure we get that data to you. And another thing might help answer that question. Having the assessment information or any of that information on an individual, we can actually do what we call progress reports. So in most cases, the reason a teacher would be interested in communicating would be, well, how is this person doing? So we can actually do like a monthly progress report. Again, it only works on an individual who's coming on a regular basis, saying, hey, Monica came in as a student. These are the different aspects of the sessions that took place. And again, you wouldn't really see an improvement in those progress reports, but just giving you a summary of what was covered in there. And that progress report may also show, Monica scheduled a session every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but for 2 weeks straight, she never showed up. So that would also give you some information on the participants where they may be scheduling sessions, but doesn't necessarily mean they're showing up. That does happen regularly. In other programs we have, it happens a lot more when we're dealing with students. When we're dealing with adults or young adults, it doesn't happen to the same degree, but that does definitely happen.
Hey, Chander.
Yes.
I just wanted to follow up with the question Tammy Alexander had about sharing test information. On the referral form that Krista just put in the chat pod, at the last thing it asks for is subject test to focus on. And then there's some room under there, so you could put your assessment information right there.
Yeah, and we can modify the form, right, where it can actually identify bullet points or whatever it might be to add in their information that we would need. And that's why at the beginning of my presentation, I started off by saying we want to be able to do a little trial here. So as the program starts from October 15th and we move forward, there may be some additional, and I think Lori, you had mentioned we might be doing another follow-up meeting in November sometime.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be a perfect checkpoint for us to see, hey, these things are working. This is something we would really like to have incorporated into the program. So once we get our little learning curve out of the way, then we can definitely start updating the forms and so forth. So as long as Mahalia and the TWC team doesn't have an issue with sharing the assessment information, we would prefer it actually from you guys, because I think it makes for a better result at the end, because you're already familiar with the individuals.
Yeah, as far as a follow-up webinar, I'm looking at the second week in November. And we haven't said anything, but we'll send out an email blast, of course, to everyone, letting you know when that is. But I'm looking at Friday the 13th of November.
We will make it work on our end. Obviously, it depends on your programs and how many people are going to be able to attend.
Absolutely.
And we can also create a couple of questionnaires between now and then that we can share with everybody. So
like a frequently asked questions?
Yeah, so that way, well, not only that, but if they want to provide feedback, they don't have to wait until mid-November, the second week of November, and actually let us know, hey, I think if you provided this, it would be very helpful. Some of these things out of Student Nest Foundation's control. This is a TWC program, and we're just working with them. So somebody may ask for things, and maybe it seems logical for us to share. However, from Student Nest Foundation standpoint, we would still have to get the permission and authorization from TWC before we can incorporate any request.
Well, I was just going to give out your personal cell so they could, call you up all hours and ask questions.
24/7, 365. And I know Lori's laughing. I've actually given out my cell phone to students, and they have called me at all odd hours.
No doubt.
Yeah, and to the best of my knowledge, over the last 16 years, I've probably answered 99.5% of the times. Any other questions?
I don't see any more questions. This is your last shot for a little while, but you can always reach out to Student Nest with questions, or you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to help you in any way I can.
And I believe
here's some good.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, I believe my cell phone was on the MOU. So you're welcome to, all joking aside, you're welcome to share my cell phone with everybody that's here today.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that TWC will be publishing an AEL letter on this. Fabiana says, which will not include his personal phone number. So I'm sure he appreciates that. So look for that AEL letter, look for an email blast for a second webinar. Even if you've attended this one, you might know people that should attend the next one. But they don't have to wait for a webinar to start services. We'll be open for business on the 15th of this month. So, okay, thank you, Chander and Monica and Sunny and Daisy for joining us today. I appreciate it.
There you go.
So thank you very much. Y'all have a great rest of the day and a great weekend. And thank you, T-Call, for all your help. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And this is Chander again. I did just add my email address in the chat window, so hopefully you'll be able to see it. But I know Lori and the team is going to share my information with you. So thank you, everybody. It was really nice. And it was really, it was really nice to see such a big turnout, which I think will be great to show, the interest from everybody. So, and so one final thing, I believe my homework is I have to get a video so we can share that, right, from a session.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Got it. Okay. Sunny and I will work on that.
Thank you, Chander.
You bet. Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Well, thank you, Chander, and thank you, Lori. This was a great session. We appreciate you, and we're looking forward to getting this project off and running.